This is Daily Armenia, CivilNet's daily news digest. Here's what's making headlines in Armenia today. During one of the main events of his trip to Washington, Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan gave a keynote speech yesterday at the International Religious Freedom Summit, explaining to the crowd how Armenia's democratic ambitions and atmosphere of religious tolerance makes it an excellent place for bringing diverse people together. We hope to turn our regional disputes into regional dialogue, and religious freedom is one of the tools that would make it happen, Pashinyan said, describing how important religious tolerance is for stability in the South Caucasus. He pointed out that though the Armenian Apostolic Church is the state religion, there are also Catholic and Protestant denominations, as well as a sizable Yazidi community that boasts their largest temple in the world. He also noted Armenia has adherents from the Russian Orthodox and Assyrian churches, the Molokhan sect, and pagans. In addition, he mentioned what he called the small but important Jewish community and the active Islamic Blue Mosque at the center of Yerevan, calling it an important part of our religious heritage. Pashinyan said that as Armenia had been part of larger empires for centuries, the idea of independence is a new one to its citizens, one the government is encouraging them to identify with more closely. He described Armenia as being in the process of making its democracy sustainable, saying, "It's not easy, but we're doing that. We're a striving democracy, and democracy in Armenia has a great future." The annual IRF Summit brings together a broad coalition of people and organizations from over 30 faith traditions to combat religious persecution around the world. The conference is attended by many influential figures in Washington, and Pashinyan was preceded in his keynote by U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance. Later in the day, he met with students from the Georgetown University School of Foreign Service. His last major event of the trip will be this morning's National Prayer Breakfast on Capitol Hill. The strike at the Zangezur Copper Molybdenum Combine, Armenia's largest mine, continues into its sixth day, despite earlier reports suggesting that the matter had been settled. Today's negotiations between the plant management and striking workers ended without resolution after more than 2 hours of talks, marking the second consecutive day of failed negotiations. Vahe Mkhitaryan, one of the strike's leaders, told Radio Free Europe before the meeting that the protest will continue until the issue is resolved. The employees, about 10% of the mine's total workforce, are demanding a 50% increase in wages. The talks happened despite the mine's spokesperson announcing on Sunday that the management is not going to negotiate with the wrongdoers. This unprecedented labor action marks the first strike in the facility's history, which plays a major role in the country as its biggest taxpayer by far. In a significant escalation of tensions, police reported an altercation yesterday in Kajaran, the town where the mine is located. According to Interior Ministry spokesperson Narek Sargsyan, 8 individuals were detained following the incident. While authorities promised to provide more details about whether those detained were minors, Mkhitaryan insisted that the incident was unrelated to the strike. Later on, the company issued a statement dismissing reports of a firearms-related incident occurring on the mine's premises, though it declined to comment on police reports about events outside its territory. Armenia's economy minister Gevorg Papoyan commented on the matter today, saying that the ongoing strike will impact Armenia's economic indicators and tax collection. While emphasizing the government's preference for a swift resumption of operations, Papoyan clarified that the underlying causes of the strike fall outside the government's jurisdiction and remain a matter between the plant's management, employees, and the trade union. The Armenian government owns 22% of the mine's shares, the rest belonging to Roman Tratsenko, a Russian oligarch who is sanctioned by the US, the European Union, and Ukraine. People living with HIV in Armenia face many obstacles that make seeking treatment more difficult. In our new report, we spoke with a number of experts, activists, and people living with HIV to learn the challenges they face and to separate fact from fiction about what has long been a particularly stigmatized illness. You can find a link to the report in the video's description. And finally, the CivilNet number of the day is 1,348. That's the number of athletes taking part in the Pan-Armenian Winter Games, going on now in the resort town of Jermuk. They hail from 18 countries, the youngest of whom, Nikita Kumar Nazarian, is just 5 years old and the only athlete representing India. This is only the second time the Winter Games are being held, the previous being 11 years ago in Zangezur. Torchbearer Varazdat Lalayan, Olympic silver medalist in weightlifting at last year's Paris Olympics, lit the cauldron that will burn for the duration of the Games. And as always, please follow CivilNet for the latest news and independent reporting from our contributors on the ground here in Armenia.